Sophia Sudak is a first-time author with a powerful story to tell. Born in Lviv, Ukraine, Sophia grew up in England and now lives in Africa with her husband. Despite having no prior experience in writing, she felt a calling to share her family's story. Through her book, Sophia shares the unimaginable hardship and miracles her family faced during this time. In her spare time, Sophia loves horse riding, learning languages, and doing ministry work with her husband. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's a pleasure to have Sophia Shudak on the show. How are you doing, Sophia?
Thank you so much, Peter. I'm doing great. Thank you for this opportunity. It's lovely to meet you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you featured on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
um,
So, Sophia, could you tell us about the making of your book? Because I really love the title itself. That is Surviving the War in Ukraine. And it's very obvious that the war is actually currently ongoing in Ukraine as we speak, as at this time, between Ukraine and Russia. And you've written Surviving the War in Ukraine. Could you tell us about the making of this book? What inspired you to write the book?
yeah, so a bit of background story. My entire family are all currently in Ukraine.
Oh,
So I'm living in South Africa with my mum, but my dad, his family, my brother, his family, and his young child, they're all in Ukraine currently. My grandmother is also in Ukraine. So this book is about them. It's also about the miracles that happened.
mhm.
What inspired me to write this book, and I must say, I was never planning to write books. It was never something I thought I would do. I enjoyed writing. I'm an English teacher, so I love languages, but I never thought I'd write anything.
Beautiful.
But after the events of 2022, I felt a calling to write about what happened in Ukraine, but not so much a general story, because we all know what happened in Ukraine. We still know
Absolutely.
what's happening. We see a lot on the news,
Yeah.
but namely what happens in individual families. And also, does God still do miracles? Is God is God in Ukraine? And I really felt a calling to just write a non-fiction book about that. Yeah.
Looks amazing. And I love the cover. Looks like a young girl
Yeah.
crying. Yeah. I love the
Yes.
cover.
But this
Mm.
girl looks about the age of my niece and looks
Oh,
really similar to my niece. So that is maybe what readers can envision as well, because
mm.
it's her story as well.
Yeah. And there's a flag there, the blue and the yellow flag attached,
Big.
denoting Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because that's the color of the flag. I remember.
Right. Everybody seems to know the color of the Ukrainian flag now. It's pretty amazing.
Now, for readers who haven't read Surviving in Ukraine yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what to expect picking up the book?
Can I read a little section of the book, perhaps?
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah. All right. So this is the part just after the table of content.
Okay.
And there's a picture with that reading part, but I'll just read to you what
Okay.
it says. To see light perfectly, you need to see it against the backdrop of darkness. Just as a star shines best against the black sky, I start my story with the darkness of war, the day of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I will show you how dark the sky was. Then you cannot miss the light that shines through the darkness. This chapter pretty much describes the events of that first day of the full-scale invasion. It
Mm.
includes lots of conversation with family, lots of phone calls, a lot of emotions that happened there.
Mm,
Lots of people who have family in Ukraine or friends in Ukraine, they can also relate to this quite strongly. And then the book follows through with talking about how God's hand moved and helped to protect the family and friends in all different parts of Ukraine as well.
yeah.
It also speaks about the churches in Ukraine.
Mm,
Lots of people want to know what the churches in Ukraine were doing, what role they played in this war. So,
mm.
being connected with quite a few churches in Ukraine, I also wrote about that. Just personal stories. Yeah.
That's amazing to know. That's pretty much amazing. Now, I want to ask you, Sophia, as a Ukrainian citizen, how do you feel about the ongoing Ukrainian-Russian crisis? I know this is a bit personal and a bit out of the book conversation, but then the book is still centered on surviving war in Ukraine. I just want to know, as a Ukrainian citizen yourself, how do you feel about the ongoing Ukrainian-Russian crisis?
Um, it's first of all, it's just very sad. It's very sad because people are dying.
Mm,
People are dying on both sides as well. But it's also sad that it's still ongoing.
mm,
It wasn't just something that happened for a few months and
and stop.
normality came back.
Mm,
It's still happening today. Just earlier today, my dad, who's in Kiev, he wrote to me to say he was walking to a shop, which I think he does every morning. And the sirens started, and he had to hide under the ground because he was just hearing bombs and he heard the missile
wow,
system working because they shoot down the bombs that fly over the city. So
wow,
just to think that this is still happening just a few hours ago, and then he just wrote to me, then the sirens stopped, so he had to wait under the
wow,
ground for maybe like 2 hours.
wow.
Just a normal daily routine interrupted just like that. So it is just all very, very sad. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's sad. I even have some friends in Ukraine who, during the recent one, they had to move. Many of them moved from Kiev to some neighboring countries, Poland. I have a friend who was able to enter Denmark, and another was able to enter Germany, and another was able to
Yeah.
enter some other neighboring countries in Europe
Oh,
because some of them were opening their borders like come in, come in. And most of them are students, you having to leave your school to be pursued
yes.
by war, stuff like that. You having to leave your work. My friend told me when I asked, because he's a YouTuber as well, I was like, isn't it why you do videos? I was like, video? When all my equipment are left in Kiev, I have to run for my life. So even I didn't get to pack any of my things. I was like, oh my God, that's terrible. That's terrible. So it's a
There's no
very
time to pack
sad,
anything. Very.
absolutely. It's a very sad. I really hope all of this goes down, actually. I really hope all of this goes down and die down. War is a terrible
Yeah,
thing. We shouldn't promote it. It's a terrible thing. It's a sad,
exactly.
very sad experience.
Very sad. You're right to say that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's great for people who can leave. I think that's always encouraged.
Mm,
Uh, my dad is under the age where he can leave as a
mm,
citizen of Ukraine. So unfortunately, he has to stay, but his whole life is there. His work is there. Um,
mm.
just keep going.
Yeah, that's true. Then that's another thing. These wars are they're very deep when it comes to conversation because most people have their business in Ukraine. They have all
Yes.
of their things in Ukraine. So the war coming for you to evacuate everything is very hard. Unlike people who just came, foreigners, they can easily leave, pack their things, leave the few ones left and escape. So it's a very sad thing. I really hope that the war dies down and both parties come to normalcy. Now, Sophia, I'd love to ask you, you've written about war. I'm pretty sure this might be a kind of a controversial title and subject, especially when an outsider reads it, who happens to be maybe a Russian, and be like, oh no, I don't agree with this fact. Now, I want to ask you as authors, We all have different ways of reacting to feedbacks and criticism. I'm curious to know your opinion about criticism. How do you react to negative criticism of your book, if you've ever had one in time past?
Surprisingly, I haven't had any negative feedback. I
Oh.
think I'm really blessed by that, because I do take things personally, but I know this is the case where one shouldn't take it personally. It is a controversial subject. So I
Absolutely.
was ready for this feedback. Like you
Mm,
say, somebody from Russia could read it. But I do keep in mind that this is a book for everybody,
mm,
because God God loves everybody. He loves
absolutely.
all the people. It's not just He loves people of Ukraine. He is
Yeah.
helping people of Ukraine daily. He's possibly a lot closer to them than he's ever been. But I would like a Russian person to read my book if they can read in English. I do hope I can translate it into Russian as well, and maybe have
Mm,
this book in a few languages like Polish, Ukrainian,
mm,
German,
yeah.
for the people to read it. I think they should see what is happening in Ukraine and how God can come through for you as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. That's quite amazing. And I also would love to ask you, writing it can be a bit challenging. I'm curious to know if you experience any challenges while writing the book. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately
Wow.
overcame it?
Because I started writing for the first time last year, I
Oh,
think the first challenge was just to sit down and do it. You have all these memories. It's not a story you create,
yeah.
it's memories. You don't want to do it too far away from the events that you forget about them. You want
Yeah.
to remember those emotions.
Mm.
On the other hand, writing the first chapter was difficult because that was the scariest day, one of the scariest days. So
Oh.
you had to kind of go back to that memory. Um, and then once the book was written, the editing was definitely a challenge. And
Mm.
my husband and a few other friends also helped me edit. In the end,
That's great.
that was one of the biggest challenges, is to get to the nitty gritty of editing. So I enjoyed the writing, and I'd say I had no idea what I was up for when I had to edit it. I was not prepared for that. That was a challenge.
Wow, that's quite great to know, and it's amazing to know how you overcame it. Now, apart from surviving the war in Ukraine, do you have any other works you've authored or maybe currently working on?
So I've got two possible projects in the future. Um, the one to kind of continue the theme, um, not a follow up series of this book, but kind of an addition. I would
Hmm.
like to do a compilation of the letters I get from my father who lives in
Oh,
Ukraine.
that would be great.
He's a writer himself. So anytime
Oh,
he writes to me, he really portrays the emotions and captures
wow.
his feelings of people and describing the situation. So I would like to do a compilation of those letters so somebody could read them and
Yeah.
understand how people felt directly coming from Ukraine. Of
Hmm.
course, I'll need to translate them and edit
Yeah.
again. And then another thing, of course, when I finished writing this book, I wasn't planning to write any other books. I said, I'm done. This was a big challenge for me. But I do feel like sometime in the future, I would possibly like to ghostwrite a few books following a series
Yeah.
surviving her,
Whoa.
but covering different topics. For example, surviving cancer, surviving prison, surviving losing a loved one.
Hmm.
So to continue the story following God's hand on the person. So yeah, those are a couple of projects that I've got in mind for the future. Yeah.
That's great. That sounds very amazing, and I hope the project goes well. And And hopefully, once you have them up, would love to have you back on P English Literature to talk about them.
Thank you.
Now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? What are the challenges you've encountered in terms of marketing your books, and what are the mediums you've utilized so far in promoting surviving the war in Ukraine?
So all of this is self-published. So this is Amazon.
Okay.
It's quite amazing what Amazon can do. I was
Yeah.
originally thinking of publishing it just as an ebook, but then I
Oh.
realized I could create a hardcover copy and a softcover copy.
Wow.
And I had no idea what amazing platform Amazon was, that they could print on demand. So I've
Yeah.
just used Amazon. Yeah. And
Hmm.
regarding marketing, I'd say it's been mostly social media from my side,
Yeah.
reaching people through social media, friend circles, word of mouth as well has been quite
Hmm.
powerful. Um, I remember a friend of mine telling me that another friend of hers showed a picture of this book and said, "Oh, I really want to buy this book." And then she
Oh.
said, "Oh, that's my friend that wrote that book." So
Oh.
it's amazing that it reached people in the city. This is in the
Hmm.
city, yeah. And also, yeah, around the world. Yeah, but marketing is definitely very time consuming. I had no
Consuming.
idea how time consuming it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's quite amazing to know. Now, Sophia, I'd love to also ask you, is there anything that you would love to share with the viewers about your book that we couldn't mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know?
Yes, I do. Um, this is very important for me because I'm not becoming a published author as a career move, but I'd like to
Mm,
continue helping Ukrainian people. I'd
mm,
like to help the people that have been affected by the war
mm,
directly. I'm in contact with lots of orphanages,
mm,
lots of churches, and lots of individual families who are
mm,
struggling. They're
mm,
struggling right now. And I think each Ukrainian is always looking for a way to help somehow, to help raise funds. So
mm,
this has been my project. So every time you purchase a hardcover copy or softcover copy or an ebook, even if you read it on Kindle Unlimited,
mm.
I believe I get a
Royalty.
part of that fee, and
Yeah.
the royalty will go to Ukrainian families. So this isn't anything for me. I'm doing this for the Ukrainian people. So
Oh,
I'm trying to raise funds. Yeah,
that's
that's what I'd
great.
like the listeners to know.
Yeah, that's very great. I'm happy to know about this, and I want to say that's a very great project. Thank you for doing something exceptional.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
It's the least you can
it's
do
a
from
great
being
thing.
so far away.
Absolutely. It's a
So
great thing
far
to
away
do.
from Ukraine.
Absolutely. I can see there are quite a lot of people that need support, that needs
Yes,
money to survive themselves. Yeah, because most
yeah,
people lost their job because of the war. Absolutely.
exactly.
There are some bombs that would go and affect buildings, affect place of works, and how are you gonna survive and go on? So I'm happy you're doing this, and I hope the book sells and the interview as well helps it. Now, as a published author,
Thank you.
yeah, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book? What do you tell people in this category?
Publishing their first book, you mean? So they're
Yeah,
struggling to make that first step as an author.
absolutely. Yeah,
Uh, Support from family and friends is definitely very important.
yeah,
I had
very
a
important.
circle of friends who knew about this book. I didn't do any pre pre-published date um, marketing. So basically, everybody, apart from very close friends, found out that I actually wrote a book on the day the book was released,
Wow.
which I made it on the 24th of February. So that marked a year of the war in Ukraine.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's when the book was released, and that's when everybody found out. But a few very close friends of mine, they read the manuscript, and they also shared their opinion, suggested edits. I think that was very important for me.
Mm,
So you need a support. You can't do this on your own.
mm,
It's not a lone wolf kind of project, even
mm,
if you are writing by yourself. But try to involve some close friends, family, experienced authors as well.
mm.
Um, let them give you some advice and listen to the advice. Yeah.
That's it. That's great. That's great. I love the sound of that. I'd love to ask you, Sophia, on what platform can interested viewers get a copy of your book? In case we have viewers who would love to get a copy, who find it very interesting, where can they get a copy directly?
Okay, good question. So this is on Amazon. I think you can see the sticker here.
Yeah,
And
printed.
Amazon.com, Amazon.uk, Amazon.ca,
Wow.
Amazon.etc.
Wow.
And so it's only on Amazon right now. If it comes to it, if I get an opportunity to publish it anywhere else, I'll I'll keep you updated. But for now, it's through
Only on
Amazon.
Amazon.
The
That particular
Amazon's been
copy you
amazing.
have, that particular copy you have, I see, once you bring it up, that was printed in Poland, right?
That
Is
was
is it still
surprisingly.
from Amazon that it was printed in Poland?
Yes, so I think they've got the
Wow.
printing press there. Yeah.
Oh, so there's basically an Amazon site in Poland as well. That's beautiful. I think I've
This
seen couple's
particular,
book.
yeah, I
I've seen a
think if
couple book like that.
really,
Yeah. Yeah.
if it's somebody who is in Europe, they
Oh.
probably have Poland printing the books for them.
Oh. Oh.
Um,
Because I see there's this book too that I have here, Rise of Rastafari. I got it on Amazon actually. And when I saw that it
okay.
was printed in Poland, I think, well, did I get it? Did I bought it? Or I think the author sent it to me and it was via Amazon. So I saw printed in Poland. I was like, oh, really? Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. We have Amazon in Poland.
So it's
Basically, I have to
great
start advertising my
cooperation.
book in Poland.
Yes, absolutely. I'm trying to get this book translated into Polish as well,
Oh,
because
that's
Poland has been an amazing support of Ukraine, um,
wow.
pretty much like a shoulder to lean on. So it'll
Wow.
be great if the Polish people can read this book as
Oh,
well.
that'll be
Um,
great. That'll be great. That'll be, and I hope your translation goes in well. So I've left,
Thank you.
yeah, and I've left a link in the discussion part of this interview where viewers, interested viewers, can get a copy of Sophia Sudak Surviving the War in Ukraine. For people who
Appreciate
are interested in getting a copy, I've left a link in the discussion part of this interview. So thank you so much, Sophia, for accepting the invitation to be featured on the show. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. So nice to meet a fellow author like yourself as well.
Yeah,
He's
it's my
published lots
pleasure.
of books and a little celebrity on Amazon with all the reviews.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you so
wonderful.
much. I
Honor
appreciate
from
it.
my side as well.
Yeah, and it's a joy having you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.